Welcome to the Third Eye Show, which brings you ancient wisdom as well as cutting-edge investigations into the mysteries of the universe. The Third Eye Show celebrates our diversity, like the unique beauty of each individual wave, and our oneness, like the magnificent ocean from which each wave emerges. We are all one in spirit as we live on this earth plane. The third eye is said to be able to see into the spiritual and psychic realms. At a time when our lives, our country, and our planet are undergoing intense transformations, we will explore topics that will fascinate, enlighten, and empower. Join us as we witness the thrilling ways spirit manifests in our daily lives and the varied paths we choose to create heaven here on our earth. The Third Eye Show is created and offered in love and light.
What are you afraid of? Death? Change? Perhaps plummeting out of the sky like our friend Bugs here? Everybody here on planet Earth is afraid of something. You're certainly not alone. But you know, there are lots of strategies for overcoming and even working with fear. You may want to grab a pencil and paper or pop a tape in the machine so you can record this show, because we've got lots of great ideas for you. First, Wes Doherty offers up some tips on fear of success and fear of failure. Talks us through it. Next, MacDonald and Lucia are going to give you lots of great strategies for overcoming fear, working your way through fear, and even using it. You won't want to miss a minute of today's Third Eye Show.
Hello, I'm Wes Doherty of AnEasierLife.com. Welcome. The topic for today's show is fear. And the portion that I'm going to be speaking about today is fear of success and fear of failure. Now, a lot of times when this conversation is being held, it's being held in the context of our professional or business life. So a lot of times it revolves around money. And although that is a portion of how our beliefs manifest themselves, there is a lot more to it than that. The way that our beliefs manifest itself is that we have one belief, and it manifests itself in all areas of our life. So in my own personal definition of success, there's a lot more to it than money or finances or wealth, although that is certainly part of it. Financial well-being is important. But to me, the bigger, the title that all those things are subtitled under is the title of abundance. And for me, success comes when there's an abundance of love, an abundance of happiness, an abundance of joy. This is the kind of abundance that what we're able to do is share with other people. So that it's not the kind of abundance that we can hoard, because as soon as you hoard something, you really kill the energy of it. And that you can very easily transform abundance into scarcity by such hoarding. And it doesn't make any difference if it's mental energy, financial energy, love energy, whatever it is. So rather than talk about it in terms of dollars and cents, I'd like to use an example of, I was having a conversation with a friend just a few days ago, a lovely woman. She is thinking of selling her house and moving. And she has some concerns about it. She's afraid that, her neighbors aren't great. She's afraid that nobody's going to want her house because it's really quite secluded. It's very private. It's a beautiful home with a beautiful view. She's concerned that she's not going to be able to get enough money out of it so that she can get the house that she wants to get in the place that she wants to get it. So she's afraid she's not going to sell the house for all those reasons and probably some more. Now, she also has a fear that when she sells the house, that she will buy in a place that's suited to her. Part of her reason for wanting to leave is that she has progressed and evolved in her own life, and that where she's living now is not as consistent with who she is and the expression of herself that she offers to the world as she was when she first moved in there. She's in a very different place in her life. She's much happier, she's much healthier, and she wants to move on. But she's not really sure as to where she wants to move on to, which is a common problem with most of us, really, as we're ready to move on. We don't really know where that next step is leading us, and there's always fear of going into the unknown. So that she's afraid of committing to a community that's not really consistent with who she is, that's not going to fit well with her, whether it's just the right place, whether it's going to have amenities, whether the well is going to be good, those kinds of things. So as we got talking about it a little bit, I mean, in the context of this conversation that we're having here, we can really see how that she's having a fear of failure, not selling the house, not getting the money, and fear of success, selling the house, and she's having those fears at exactly the same time. It's not like she's choosing one or the other. It's all around her. So really what she's doing is that no matter where she looks, there's fear. There's the fear of a wrong step. There's the fear of a bad sell. There's the fear of people getting turned off by the neighbors. So no matter where she looks, there is a fear-based outcome. So really what she's done is she's put herself in a position where she can't win, because no matter where she looks, she's afraid, because she has manifested this picture of all these horrible outcomes. So what she is really doing is that this is all about fear. She is at the center of this. She is the common denominator, and it's her fear-based beliefs that are creating all these fear-based realities or possibilities for her. So the reason that I use this as an example is because there's only, to me anyway, there's only two kinds of beliefs in the world. One is a fear-based belief and one is a love-based belief. A fear-based belief always leads to scarcity. And the reason that it leads to scarcity is when you take any fear-based belief and you bring it down to its simplest form, the underlying statement of it is I am not enough. Now, a love-based belief always leads to abundance. And the reason that a love-based belief always leads to abundance is because at its most basic form, a love-based belief always comes down to I am enough. So because our thoughts and beliefs create our reality, when we have fear-based beliefs creating our realities, we end up with scarce realities. We end up with bad choices. Should I choose the rock or should I choose the hard place? Which is the position that she's in. If she was able to change her viewpoint about herself, and part of this came from, in conversation, I discovered that it came from the idea that she is a woman who was brought up in a time where men make these kinds of decisions. Women make the home and men make all the financial decisions. This is the first time that she's done it that she has not been married. Or the second time, actually. This house that she's in now was a reaction to getting out of that home. And now that she's more standing on her 2 feet, this is the first time in her life that she's made a decision like this. And she doesn't really trust her own judgment yet. She doesn't really trust her own intuition yet, so that she's afraid she's going to make the wrong decision. And she's afraid because she doesn't trust herself. So that's the fear-based belief. I am not trustworthy. So really what it comes down to, and I think this is such a good example of this, and again it's about a person's home, but it can easily be about their relationships, their finances, their job, their creativity, their family, whatever, is that fear and love do not coexist. They're oil and water. Fear is a lot of times described as darkness, and love is described as light, and the two cannot coexist. Now, there really is no battle between fear and love, because all that has to happen is that you just have to flick the light on and fear disappears automatically. It's just a natural outcome of the expression of either fear or love. So a fear of success or a fear of failure is actually just an absence of a love-based belief. So that when we're able to discover what the fear-based belief or beliefs are that create our fears of success and our fears of failure, then the fears actually disappear. And not only do fears disappear, but the outcomes of those fears disappear also, because now it's love that's making our decisions, it's love that's guiding us, and it's love that's creating those realities. And a love-based reality is always one of abundance. so that she can easily go from being afraid that she's not going to sell her house to saying, you know, I only need one buyer, and this is a beautiful house, and that person is going to show up. Now, what also happens then is that she doesn't have to be afraid of finding the right place, this pinpoint on the map of the world. Then, because there's an abundance of places that she can be, she can then come from the point of view that says, there's tons of places for me. There's thousands of homes, a plentiful number of towns and villages and cities that I can live in, and all I have to do is step into it, and it's going to appear, because that's what love is going to do for me. So, when you're faced with fear, recognize that it's only an effect of a fear-based belief that you have. And if all we do is pay attention to the effects, then but not deal with the cause, then we may heal that one effect, but we're going to continue to create other fear-based effects, simply because the cause hasn't been taken care of. But if we heal the cause and transform a fear-based belief into a love-based belief, then all we're going to have is wonderful opportunities to choose from. An abundance of choices, and all of them will be good. All of them will be great. Should I choose this great house or this great house? Should I choose this great opportunity or this great opportunity? So recognize that although it's important to pay attention to the effects, because those are the things that are there, if that's all we pay attention to, then we end up always in the same place. So recognize that success is your natural birthright. Recognize that abundance is your natural birthright, and feel comfortable to allow yourself to believe in yourself, to trust in yourself, and to allow spiritual guidance to help you heal those places that still are contained in fear, and move on to a place where it won't be fear that will be giving you limited outcomes, but that it will be love giving you abundant outcomes. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this helps.
Everyone here on planet Earth is afraid of something. And so are we. We both have our fears just like everybody else. You're certainly not alone. It's nothing to be ashamed of to be afraid. Everybody's afraid. I believe, only the most evolved beings have evolved completely beyond fear. And in my personal view, those beings are no longer incarnating here on planet Earth.
That's what I think. I have never met one of those beings.
Neither have I, so I don't think there are any here on planet Earth.
All the people that I know do have some fears and anxieties.
Yes.
It's completely normal.
Completely normal. But did you know that there are lots of strategies for overcoming and even working with fear? Now, Patty and I have done some research on this, and we have lots of great ideas for you today, so you can start the new year in a really empowered and confident way. That's our intention for this show. So, Patty, what is fear?
I think that generally fear is a feeling of dread or apprehension. It's usually, looking into the future and imagining the worst possible outcome or a bad outcome. Some people call imagining unwanted future events praying for something you don't want, which I think is a terrific way of putting it.
Praying for something you don't want.
So that's really, I think that really...
Think about that.
Is what it is. And so really think about that sentence, about that quote.
Yeah.
Because I think that it really kind of sums it up.
So what that means is that if you're imagining some future unwanted event, you're actually calling it to yourself.
You can be. And if you're worrying about something that's coming up, whether it's taking a test or an exam of some kind, or
whatever it might be,
or a medical procedure or medical result, or something that you have to do like public speaking. It could be so many different things.
It could be anything.
It could be anything at all, depending on what things that you are afraid of. Then you're really, in a way, you may be calling it to yourself. And the other thing to realize too is that fear is not productive. It is not productive at all. It doesn't serve any purpose.
That's right.
And being afraid of something is not going to, help the outcome.
Right.
And if anything, it could make the outcome, maybe worse than you don't want.
Sure, that's self-fulfilling prophecy.
Which I think is quite true. And I have struggled with fear myself, and I'm just going to give a quick little anecdote from my own life, and that I, have tended to be a worrier, and still am. I'm still a work in progress. And recently I was awaiting for the results of a medical test, and in the past, when this would happen to me, I would imagine all kinds of things, that I had the worst possible disease, that I was going to get these terrible results. And recently I did have a medical test. I had to wait a week for the results, and I really astounded myself because I decided that I wasn't going to think about it for that week, and I really didn't. I mean, it's amazing, but I really didn't think about it. A few times it kind of crept in, and I would just push it out.
It's wonderful.
And I feel really good about it. I feel like I am making some progress. So if I can do it, all of you out there can do it too.
Everybody can do it.
I think another unhelpful fear is actually a collective fear, especially since 9/11, and that would be the fear of terrorism, which is tied up in traveling, not necessarily with being on a plane, but just with traveling at all, like being in an airport. And that's really not helpful either, because there's really not much that we can do about it. I mean, we either have to accept that security is better and travel, and maybe even take a chance, because we don't want to limit our lives by not traveling, or we can decide that we're not going to, and that's really, I guess, a personal decision. I mean, I choose to travel and take planes. I get a little nervous, I'll admit that, but I will still do it. So that's kind of a collective fear, and also the fear of natural disasters, because there's been so many floods and tornadoes. It seems like there's been a lot more in the past few years than there ever have been. And those things are completely out of our hands. We don't have control over that kind of thing.
Although, if you live in an area that's hurricane prone, there are steps.
Like North Carolina.
Yeah, there are steps you can take to secure your home, and that's one of the points we're going to cover. That do what you can do.
Or have a plan of how you would where you would go.
Yeah.
And what signs you would look for, at what point you might leave your home. And that can be very comforting if you have a plan of some kind. And the other thing too is fear of people who are different, and that can mean a lot of different things. Fear of people.
To different people.
Of different ethnicities, different races, different religions, different cultures. And a lot of people are kind of made nervous, or even a little afraid.
Even fearful, for sure.
Fearful. And I think the antidote for that is learning more.
It's
knowledge. Getting knowledge. It's getting to know people from different cultures or from different, ethnic groups.
Right. And then there are helpful fears.
There are.
For example, what about nightmares? Now you may say, how does a nightmare help me? Well, a nightmare can be very helpful especially if it's a recurring nightmare. I think a nightmare is bringing something to our attention that we need to have a look at.
I think so too.
And especially if it's a dream that recurs, it's stressing. This is something you need to take a look at. So if you look at the people, the players, the situations as metaphors in that dream, you may be able to figure out why you're having the dream and what it is you're telling yourself that you need to look at, or you need to resolve, or you need to work through. Maybe you need to forgive someone, maybe you need to ask for forgiveness. It could be anything. But when you have a nightmare, especially a recurring nightmare, take a look at it, because there's something there that the dream is telling you, and it's actually your friend. It's helping you to work through something. So nightmares are not a bad thing.
They may feel bad when you first wake up.
Well, yeah, they're not
But ultimately,
fun.
they're not a bad thing. And I think it can also be helpful to write down your dreams.
Sure.
If you can keep like a pen or a pencil and some paper by your bedside.
Sure.
And then when you read them later, a bunch of them together, it can really tell you something.
Sure.
And kind of give you a message. The other thing would be maybe the fear of walking down a deserted street in a dangerous neighborhood. I mean, hopefully you wouldn't have to do that, but if you found yourself in a situation like your car breaking down,
or in any situation, in
like
which
that,
you feel uneasy, I would say or unsafe, I would say that your probably your cellular memory or your DNA is warning you.
Yeah, that there could really actually be danger in a situation like that, but you can also prepare for it. I mean, prepare for the fact that if your car breaks down, maybe you have a cell phone with you, or you have, flashlights or other, basic things to, fix a car.
Sure.
Or to do minor
But if your
repairs.
intuition tells you that this certain person is unsafe or a situation is unsafe, I would say pay attention to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely pay attention to
Absolutely.
it. So now we're going to move on to some strategies for working through your fears. What's number one, Patty?
I think a big one is not to keep your fears to yourself, because I think my personal belief is that things that are kept hidden or kept in the dark, have an awful lot of power.
Yes.
And once you bring something out into the light and you expose it, it really loses its power. So the way to really shine a light on your fears and really take their power away is by bringing them out into the open, by talking to other people, talking to friends, family. If you are lucky enough to have people that you can talk to that way, or talk to a therapist, by getting some formal help, or joining a support group. Maybe if you're proactive enough, maybe start a support group yourself, for people who are anxious. And there's a quote here that I think that you found, Lucia, that I love, because it's really speaks to what I just said. It says, "Fear grows in darkness. If you think there's a boogeyman around, turn on the light." And that quote comes from journalist and relationship expert Dorothy Thompson.
Right.
And I really like it. I think it's really, really true. So what else do you think, Lucia, in terms of...
Well, I think another thing that can happen is we can look at our fear as a spiritual issue, because sometimes we bring fears forward from past lives.
I think we do.
I know that was something that one of the things that I've had to deal with in my life is I've had to do some past life work. And you can work through traumas from past lives with a qualified hypnotherapist.
Or regressionist?
Past life regressionist, yes. There are lots of things you can do. Actually, I think reading Brian Weiss's books on past lives, Many Lives, Many Masters, and so on, just do a search for Brian Weiss, and you'll see lots of books. And that's a good place to start if you're thinking that maybe some of your issues came in with you when you were born.
And do you think that's more true if the fear you have doesn't seem to relate to anything in this life?
Absolutely, great
That's
point.
what I would think.
Great point.
Yeah, that it would be like, why am I afraid of this? I've never had any experience with it.
Right, or trauma around this, and
around
yet
it.
I'm terrified of whatever, swimming or dogs or whatever, something that,
Yeah.
you just cannot account for. Well, there may very well be a past life trauma attached.
Definitely, I think so too.
So that's something. So if you see it as a spiritual issue, also, I believe that we make spiritual contracts before we come into each lifetime. And you may very well have an illness or something like that you've actually contracted for before you came into this life, or so-called disability, whatever, something along those lines. And you took this on willingly in order to learn something yourself or teach someone around you something, patience, compassion, whatever it may be. And so it's possible that you've got some sort of, you've experienced a trauma or something like that you actually contracted for in pre-birth. And I think, again, that a qualified hypnotherapist, qualified regressionist might be able to help with that.
Yeah,
sort
someone
of
who
thing.
is trained and
Someone
certified.
who's trained for this, yeah.
You want to really get someone qualified, but going that deeply into your psyche.
Yes.
But I agree with you there. I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
And of course, there are childhood events that can relate directly to this life. For example, I fell down the stairs when I was 2 years old. Took quite a knocking, as I recall.
Oh.
I did not take a trauma from it, but many people can. There's a kind of thing that does lead people to carry traumas throughout their lifetime. So if something like that happened to you when you were a child, and it could be anything, falling down the stairs or whatever it might be, you may have a fear that directly relates to something that happened when you were a little child.
And you may not recall it,
You
but
might not even
sometimes
recall it, yeah.
you could ask if your parents are living, you could ask them,
Yeah.
or another older relative, you could ask them, did something happen to me, around water or around stairs, something like that.
And that might be a clue for you.
Yeah.
If something did happen, then maybe you need to talk to a therapist about it. And if it didn't, maybe you need to talk to a past life regressionist about it.
Right. I think it's important to find out which direction,
Where to go with that.
where to go with that.
Yeah, yeah. So those are some ideas that in case the fear that you're experiencing is a spiritual issue. But there are other things, other techniques.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Patty?
I think one really good technique is meditating, or either meditating alone, in silence, or using a visualization tape, a guided imagery tape.
Wonderful.
Those can be so comforting. I mean,
Yes.
I just love those.
Yes, I do too.
And I love meditations, either private, doing it myself, or doing it sometimes in a group setting.
Yeah,
and I've
love
done it
it.
both ways.
Guided meditations are wonderful,
Oh,
and
they're
there are
so
tons of them available.
They're great.
Tons of them are available.
Yeah, I used to do those when I did full moon circles.
Oh, yeah.
I did that for a couple of years, and people just loved it. And I used to sometimes think, oh, I wish I had my eyes closed and I was going to that where they're going.
Because where
But-
they're going is to a place that's very calm and very centered.
And very safe and
Very safe.
filled
So-
with protection and
So
love.
if you're thinking about something that's coming up, tonight, tomorrow, and you're feeling kind of jittery about it and anxious about it, something that you can do to calm yourself right now is just to do a meditation or a guided visualization to help center yourself and calm yourself now.
And sometimes it can be as simple, even if you're not an experienced meditator, you can start out by simply imagining whatever, like say a beautiful, warm, pink glowing light around you.
Sure.
And that it's protecting you. That's sort of a very basic, or whatever color resonates with you. And that's kind of just a basic one, wouldn't you think?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Or you could imagine yourself floating up into a beautiful bubble. I think of this sort of iridescent soap bubble. And once I'm in this bubble, this is a bubble of protection. It's
that's lovely.
divine light, divine protection. And I tell myself that I'm absolutely safe within this bubble. And so it's a good technique. It's very simple. Anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Just take a few minutes to calm and center yourself, and I think you'll see a big difference in the way you feel.
Yeah, it can be very, very comforting and very relaxing. And I think there have been studies even showing that people's blood pressure
Sure.
it lowers, upon doing that, or if you do it regularly. So can be a really wonderful way to, dispel fear.
And there's a book that I'd like to recommend. Another thing you can do is read a self-help book. There are zillions of them out there. There's one that I particularly like. There's one that Patty particularly likes that she's going to mention later on. But one that I particularly like is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And this is by psychologist Susan Jeffers. Yeah. And this is for something that's stopping you from doing something you want to do. You'd love to open your own business, and you've got the money and you've got the savvy and you've got the vision, but you're afraid. The thing that's stopping you is fear. Well, if that's going on in your life, or whatever it might be, you want to go for that promotion, and you feel that you've earned it and you feel that you're qualified, but you just don't feel that you have the guts to go for it. If that's your problem, this is a great book. I have this book. I've read this book. I actually gave it away to someone I felt needed it. And Susan Jeffers is a psychologist, so she offers some really great ideas, very clear-cut ideas, a plan for action. Readers unlearn their misconceptions about fear. She talks about what fear is. And often it's just kind of faulty thinking that leads us to be afraid. And she gives us affirmations and exercises to help strengthen our conviction in ourselves. Let's see, she cites case studies. There's a lot of very practical information in this book. It's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Great book.
Great title.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. It sounds like a really good one.
It is. It's a really good book.
Okay, and also remember that knowledge often dispels fear. Knowledge, you can never
Very
have
important.
too much knowledge.
Very important.
I mean, knowledge is so important, and so another way of dispelling fear is to learn more about what it is that you fear. It may not be anywhere near as bad as you think once you actually get information about it. For example, maybe you've always been told that a person from a certain culture or a certain orientation or lifestyle as bad or evil. But if you get to know those people, directly on a personal level, you realize that they're just people.
Just like you.
Just like you, that we're all part of the human family. Or if you're afraid of, say, the results of a test of some kind, look it up and find the information out. That actually getting a result that you don't want on something, you may find, oh, that isn't really that serious. It's not the end of the world. So sometimes being armed, or I think always, being armed with knowledge works in almost any situation.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that we have covered before on this show, and we will continue to cover. We did one recently. We did a piece on paganism. You say the word pagan, and a lot of people just sort of blanch and think, oh my God, devil worshippers. And
Right.
that's
Satan,
absolutely not
yeah.
the case. I mean, they don't even believe in devils. And we made it a point to find out some information about what paganism actually is. We also did a piece on spiritualism and mediumship, because a lot of people don't really know what they are. So rather than just filling in the blanks with fears.
With fears, and also fears that are
And
often based
misconceptions.
on myths and old wives' tales that people just kind of spread without actually having any basis for those ideas.
Absolutely.
And that can be very destructive. So remember,
Very destructive.
you can't really know too much. I'm a big fan of learning and of knowledge.
Yes.
So learning,
So find out about it. So
Yeah,
if there's something
learn
that
about
you're
it.
afraid of, maybe you should find out about it.
like if you're afraid of flying, this just came into my head. If you're really afraid of flying, actually look up the statistics on how often there are plane crashes. And I think that you'll find that, statistically speaking anyway, that there are really hardly any plane crashes.
Right.
When you
Right.
think that there are hundreds of planes taking off, maybe thousands every day. And how often do we hear of a plane crash?
Hardly ever.
Hardly ever.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff can sometimes be very comforting.
Yes.
Just simply learning about things.
I think another really terrific strategy is to think it through. Think through the situation. Say to yourself, you may be saying, oh, what if the worst happens? Okay, what if the worst happens? So what happens? What's the worst? You fail the test, the driver's test, and you've got to come back next month and take it again? I mean, in the course of your lifetime, does it really matter whether you pass in August or September? No, it doesn't. You don't get the job? Well, maybe you weren't supposed to get that job. Maybe you could look at it as a gift. If it doesn't happen, it's not supposed to happen. And something else will happen. Something else that is going to happen that's the right thing, that's beneficial for you, and it'll all work out just fine. So if you think the thing out, think it through. What if the worst happens?
And really answer that question and really try to define,
Yeah, and
what does
answer
that
it.
mean? What is the
Answer it.
worst? What is the worst thing?
What is the worst?
And again, you're utilizing, questioning something, and also using knowledge to conquer fear, using that
Exactly.
knowledge of, what is the worst that can happen. And when you really think it through, it may not be so terrible. It's like, oh, the worst that can happen is that, like you said, I don't get that job. Well,
Or
the
I take
world's-
the test
yeah.
again, or, whatever.
And it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. And I think just about any circumstance that you can possibly come up with, it's not going to be the end of the world. So finish the sentence. What if the worst happens? Well, what if it does? And I think that's a really useful
I
strategy.
think it is too. And you might surprise yourself
Yeah.
when you realize that the worst really
not
most
so bad.
often isn't so bad.
Huh?
But a big one, I think, is living in the moment, being in the present. And I know that can be
Very much.
hard to do all the time, but it's really important, because if you're not living in the present, then you're living either in the past or in the future. And so that means you're not fully experiencing your life now. And so it's really not a good thing. And I don't think that we can all do it 100% every moment of every day, but we can certainly strive to do it a lot more. And I've read a fantastic book about that. It's called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And it's very helpful. It's presented in sort of a question and answer format. I have a quote from it. I'm trying, actually, here we go. I have the quote, which I really love. he says, Eckhart Tolle says, all negativity is caused by an accumulation of psychological time and denial of the present. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough present. I mean, that's really...
Think about
it
that.
kind of really hits that on the
Think
head.
about what he's saying with that.
So it's really something to think about. I think it's pretty momentous. I think it's a really big, important concept.
To live in the moment. So
To live
let's
in the
say
moment.
tomorrow you have to give a presentation at work. You have to stand in front of your coworkers and make that presentation, and you're thinking, oh, is my presentation good enough? And oh, what if I throw up in the middle of my presentation? And you're projecting all of these things. Well, you know, you can stop yourself. Right now, you're not giving a presentation. Right now, you're sitting on your couch probably having a cup of tea and watching television. Right now, in this moment, you're not giving a presentation in front of your coworkers, so why project a fear?
Exactly.
Just be here now.
And again, that's a non-productive fear.
Exactly.
Completely
Absolutely.
non-productive. So the best thing that you can do is what we talked about before, is prepare. You know, make sure that you have the presentation, that you're prepared for it, that you have notes and you're comfortable with the notes, and maybe practice. That's really the best antidote to being afraid of something like that.
Yes, and be
then,
here in this present
and then
moment.
forget about it. Once you have it prepared, then try not to think about it. And as I was talking about earlier, if I did it, you can do it.
Absolutely. We
Yeah,
can all
we can all
do that.
do it.
We can all do that. But if you find yourself, your mind keeps going back to this thing that's coming up tomorrow, we have some strategies for that too. One thing you can do, rather than imagining yourself, you know, throwing up into the garbage bin and making a fool of yourself in front of everybody.
Or forgetting what you were going to say.
Or forgetting about, you
there
can
could be so many things.
imagine yourself doing a fantastic job. Imagine the look of awe on everyone's face as you give your presentation. They say, oh, it's brilliant. This is fantastic. Imagine that, and that's really going to boost your self-confidence. So instead of projecting and imagining some disaster, imagine a fantastic, wild success.
Yeah, imagine people looking at you with
Whoa.
total interest, like they're completely interested in what you're talking about, and afterwards they tell you, wow, that was fantastic, that was a great presentation.
Absolutely.
Great job. Just imagine that.
Yes. So, you know, you have
Yeah.
control over what you're thinking. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to throw up on my shoes, just stop that and imagine something else instead, something constructive and positive. Or think back to past successes. We all have them, every one of us.
That's a very good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've been successful before. You can do it again. Now, maybe you haven't done exactly this, but you've done something else that was challenging and you rose to the occasion. That's true of all of us.
Yeah, and even imagine other times when you have been anxious or apprehensive about something, and then you went and did it, and it was like, wow.
What was the big deal?
Why was I so worried about that?
Exactly.
It was fine. I mean, that's happened to me.
That's happened to everybody.
Yeah, I think it's happened to all of us.
Gee, why was I scared?
What was I so afraid of? That was nothing. That went fine.
Think about that, because that's probably what's going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. That is the most likely outcome.
What else can you do? You can make a list of successes.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Now, I mean, different things work for different people. For some people, a visualization is going to be very useful. For other people, making a list is going to be really useful. Write the things down that you have succeeded at, that you thought were going to be really difficult, or you just were not equal to, and found out you were.
Yeah, things that you really thought were going to be disasters, and they were successful.
Yeah.
So if you write them down, then you can sort of say, well, look at how many times I did something that I imagined the worst, and it turned out fine.
Right.
So that can really help.
Another one is positive affirmations.
Oh, yeah. I love affirmations.
That's a great one. I know you do.
Yeah.
You can take this one.
I love
Why don't you
affirmations.
talk about that?
Yeah, I just think they're really powerful. An affirmation is really saying something in your own words, like say, I'm going to give a fantastic presentation tomorrow, or I am ready to receive, love and respect. it could be about any issue in your life, but today, since we're talking about fear, you know, or it could be something like, I will be relaxed and calm on the plane next week. And you can do it any way you want. You can sort of say it to yourself repeatedly throughout the day. One thing that I like to do is write things on sticky pads. And sometimes I'll just have them on some papers that I know I'll be looking at that day, or up on the bathroom window. I guess that depends on your living situation. And if you're living with someone who might think that's a little bit kooky, then maybe you wouldn't do that. But you can, you know, you can certainly get it in somewhere.
Sure.
And repeat them. And, you know, after you repeat something enough, a lot of times you do really start to believe it. It kind of, you know, seeps into your unconscious.
Yeah. And I would put it in the present tense. I would say, I am calm. I'm completely at ease about this trip that's coming up, or that presentation I have to make, or that test that I need to take, or the results that I'm waiting for, or whatever it is. Just put it in the present tense. I feel completely calm and at ease about this. Everything is going to be fine. Give yourself a big hug. Take care of yourself by allowing yourself to be calm, to be at ease about this. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Take care of yourself, and maybe even treat yourself. You know, give yourself some private time.
Yeah.
Whatever that
relaxing bubble bath. You know, relax yourself. Try to just relax and be at peace and be all right with whatever's coming.
Affirmations are
great.
Really powerful.
And there are lots of affirmations. You can look them up on the internet. There are tons of them.
Oh, there are many sites that have so many, and you can write your own, or you can borrow from other people, or you can mix them up together. I mean, there are just so many ways of doing that. But I just think they're really powerful.
It's not something that has to cost you any money. They're available to everybody.
And you can just write it down with a pen. It doesn't have to be fancy.
You can write down, I am successful. I am at peace. Put it on a sticky note.
Self-confident.
I am self-confident. Just put it all over your apartment.
I am smart. I am competent. I mean, whatever it might be. And I think those are powerful. I personally sometimes use tarot cards. You know, and I'll take the card that really represents the image of what I want, and I'll sort of prop it up somewhere.
That's a great thing to do. Or any kind of image. I mean, cut
something out.
Cut something out of a magazine. I mean, if you want to, I don't know, if this is about getting on a horse, take a picture of somebody on a horse having a great time, big smile on their face, and put that someplace prominent where you'll see it.
Like on your refrigerator, or someplace where you'll see it all the time. I think those are very helpful, and they do really seep into your unconscious mind.
Yeah, I think so too.
If you do them often enough.
Yep.
What else do you think? I mean, there's so many different things here, so many different ideas.
I think facing your fear is really important too. Sometimes we need to just face the thing that we're afraid of. The classic example being to get back on the horse that threw you. To continue with that horse image.
Like don't give up.
Don't
just
give up.
because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Right.
It just means that you didn't get it right the first time.
Right. That's all it means.
That's all it means.
Is that you're on a learning curve.
It doesn't mean that you're inadequate or inept or not smart enough to do it. I mean, I think all of us have, this has happened to everybody. Everybody.
So it just means you're on a learning curve, that there's something you need to learn here. That's all it means.
Exactly. It doesn't, there's nothing else hidden there.
Right.
In that meaning.
And
I think another thing too is that sometimes a goal can seem really overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, if you're looking at the big picture, you say, "Oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do all of this?" So I think it can be important to look at it in pieces or in little steps. For example, you know, you can't write a whole novel in a day. Well, I wouldn't think you could. I mean, so you might just want to focus on writing a page or setting, you know, a small goal.
So if you're saying to yourself, oh, I really want to write my life story, but gee, I'm not up to it. That's a huge task. Well, you don't have to write the whole story today. It doesn't have to be a huge task. Today,
just write something.
Write something. Write a couple of pages. Yeah. If you want to paint for 5 minutes. Go and paint. You don't have to, you know, if you're saying to yourself, well, if I want to paint, I need to have a room and a special room for paints, and I need to have 4 hours a day to do it, and I need this and I need that. You really don't. All you need is just the smallest bit, just to begin. Just begin today.
Just make a little dent in it, or make a little start.
Yeah.
And that's really all you have to do.
And you can break it down into small steps. It won't be so overwhelming. Gee, when we started this TV show, we knew absolutely zero about any of this.
We really did. We didn't. We knew nothing.
Nothing. And little by little, we've learned. I mean, just as everybody does. So.
I mean, you really do learn by a lot of ways, but I think the most powerful way is learning by doing.
By doing it.
By doing something.
So whatever it is that you want to do, don't let the enormity or imagined enormity of it stop you. If you want to do it, do it. Just take the first step today. Take a little step tomorrow. Take another step the next day, and you will accomplish your goal.
Yeah, I think just about anything is within everybody's reach.
I think so too.
You know, if we try hard enough and just take baby steps at first.
I think so too.
And then you get more confidence as you see the little steps succeeding, then you get more confidence to continue.
Yes. And another thing is to remind yourself that fear offers no reward.
That is so important.
There's nothing to gain. Absolutely nothing to gain. I know we've said that before, but
it's so critical to this.
It's really important. Yeah. It just doesn't give you anything.
Yeah, there are no benefits.
There are no benefits to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Except in those few situations we talked about.
Yeah, where you're in
few.
physical danger or something,
Yeah.
your intuition is going bing, bing, bing. Okay, pay attention to that. But short of that, fear really is not your friend.
Yeah, so do we, I guess the question is, do you really want to hold on to something that is not serving you at all?
And
it's
that's
actually
holding you back.
It's holding you back, or may even be literally making you sick.
Yep.
And fear can cause all kinds of physical things, like headaches or back problems, I mean, all kinds of stress-related problems. So it really is something to, work on overcoming.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I also think another big one is to try to really tune out negative remarks coming from other people. Like sometimes other people who are very insecure themselves, most likely, or will say things like, "Oh, what are you talking about? You can't do that." And sometimes, we listen to that and we think, "Oh, maybe he's right. Maybe what am I thinking? Of course I can't do that." Mm-hmm. So I think, don't you agree that you need to really
absolutely
tune
agree.
that out?
I think, again, if you use your mind and think about this, the person who keeps telling you, "Oh, you're inadequate, you can't do that, or you'll fail at this," that kind of thing, think about the person who's saying that. Try to remove the emotion from it, the way, that you're feeling angry or resentful or hurt. Try to get out of that and think about the person who's saying that to you, because that person is telling you a lot about himself or herself. It's really a reflection of that person's attitude toward himself. It's not about you.
That's so important.
It's really important.
Is.
That person may be feeling very inadequate and thinking, "Gee, if you succeed, you won't need me anymore. You won't come around because you won't need me." I think that person is telling you about his or her insecurities. It's not about you.
And that's so important. Or they might also be feeling, well, if you accomplish something really wonderful, that will make me feel like I'm useless, or like I'm not doing anything important.
Absolutely.
So
they're
it's really
telling you about themselves. It's not about you.
It's all about them.
It's all about them.
So I think that's really important, and also important, if possible, to stop hanging out with negative people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we can't always do that, because it might be someone that we work with,
or a family member,
or something. But if there's a choice, try not to gravitate towards people like that, or try not to hang out with them. Or if you do have to hang out with them, try to really tune them out, and keep telling yourself that it's not about you.
And if there's something that you'd like to do, let's say you want to start your own business, you want to open a store or something, your own business, and you're hanging around with people who are saying, "Oh, you can't do that, you won't make a success," I suggest that you find some people who share your goals, maybe join the local JCs or business group or whatever, people who are of like mind and who will support your vision.
I agree. That's a really good way to do that.
Yeah. So you can do something like that. But then what do you do, Patty, if you find that you've really got intractable fears or paralyzing fears? Then what do you do?
I think if you have fears that are paralyzing and none of these things are helpful to you and you really can't get past them, then I think then that it's really time to get some professional help, to see a therapist. And there are a lot of therapists out, and I think these days, I don't think I even know anybody who hasn't seen a therapist at one time or another. So there's no stigma attached to it. It doesn't mean you're crazy at all. It just means that you need some help from a person who is objective.
Yes.
And can kind of ask the right questions so that you gain some insight, and also offer suggestions, maybe better ones than we have even, or to really help you, get up the strength or the determination to try some of these things. And the other thing too is, if you find a therapist and you don't click with that person, don't give up on it. Just remember that therapists are people too, and that you may just have hooked up with a therapist who isn't on your wavelength. So
Sure.
Because not everybody can be, so I would definitely try again.
Sure, and we're running some websites that you can go to locate a therapist if you don't know anyone. I think probably the best way to find one is a personal recommendation.
I do too, like someone that recommends someone. But if you don't have that, you can go on these websites and you can put in your zip code or your town, and you'll get a list of therapists. In that area.
You may even find someone who specializes in the thing that you're working with, someone who specializes in phobias or, that sort of thing.
And when you do call a therapist, feel free to ask questions of that person, to ask what their qualifications are, if they have experience dealing with this particular issue, because you really want somebody who has treated people or counseled people who have this issue of fear or anxiety.
Absolutely.
So I think that's
and
important.
Don't hesitate to do that. If you feel that your fears are paralyzing you and stopping you from living your best life, go for help.
Yeah, there's help. There is help out there.
Yeah, there's help. But I believe that the most important thing is to cultivate within ourselves the knowledge that we are totally connected to the universe and everything in it. I personally believe that a lot of fears come from a feeling of isolation, that, only I am experiencing this. I'm alone in my fear of fill in the blanks. And it's not true. None of us is alone. We're all connected. And I think if we really cultivate that consciousness, the consciousness of our connection to each other and to the universe, to a loving, intelligent, benevolent universe that knows about us, cares about us, guides us, is there for us, that will really help to dispel many, many fears. For example, the fear of death, that's a big one, and a lot of people are really afraid to go to I think of it as ascending and going home, because I have faith that that's what's happening. But, if you don't have faith, it must be very difficult to look at that mortality.
Right, if you think there's nothing at all, and you're just going into blackness or nothingness, I think that would be afraid. But I share your vision of what happens, and I think there is, that we're all made up of energy, and the energy doesn't ever die or go away.
Right.
It simply changes form.
Right. I think we just are released into a higher vibration. And so for me, that faith in the universe, faith in God, whatever you call it, faith in spirit, sustains me when I feel afraid. And I just call on that loving energy to sustain me when I'm afraid. So that's always available to us.
And that's something that I also do, and that's available to everybody.
Yep.
And it can be very empowering.
Whatever your tradition,
Yeah.
whatever your spiritual tradition or religion or whatever, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Just to know that that you're not alienated. You're not alone. That other people have gone through this and are going through it right now, and will continue to go through it. That you're not the only one who's going through it.
Right.
And that can be tremendously comforting, I think.
I think so too. The Buddha said that meditation on love is the great protector. So I'd like to suggest to you that you follow along this guided imagery and see if it doesn't help to make you feel calm, happy, connected to the universe, and full of love. First, start small. Look around you. Look around you right now. From where you're sitting right now, can you smell flowers or wood smoke or food cooking? Can you move about the room without pain? Can you read? Then you have something to be grateful for. Think about that and feel the gratitude for all of the gifts that you have right now, in the present moment. Without winning the lottery or being a millionaire, think about all the things you have to be grateful for. And feel how that swells your heart and makes you feel so wonderful. Now think about the people you love. Although, of course, we have differences with friends and family and don't always get along with them, we sure miss them when they're gone. So let's appreciate them now. Think about all the people you love and how much you appreciate them, how much they give to you, how much they enrich your life. Think about the friend who makes you laugh, and the one who's always there to listen to you, and the one who's your companion, your lover. Think about them all and appreciate them. Send out love to them. Now, broaden that circle. Send out gratitude and love to everybody for whom you feel affection. Not just your best friend, but everybody, all of your acquaintances. The postal carrier who always has a cheerful word. The guy behind the counter at the diner who is happy to give you that extra cup of coffee, always asks how you're doing, how's your day going. All the people who are part of your life. Appreciate them all and send them all love. Send love out to all of them and just feel that love growing and swelling. Now, extend that love to everybody, everywhere, everybody on earth. Just imagine this beautiful planet just pulsing with love, with everyone dancing in the streets for joy, hugging everyone else and being so happy. Everyone is peaceful, everyone is well, everyone is happy. Doesn't it feel great? Now, enlarge your vision again. Send out love to the whole cosmos. Send it out to the universe. Send it out to every universe. Send it out to the ends of being. Send it everywhere. Just broadcast it. Send that love out everywhere. And recognize your oneness with it all. Doesn't it feel wonderful? You couldn't possibly be afraid now.